Hi. So welcome back for our third session in here, and it's my pleasure to introduce Diana Hodge, and she's going to be talking about changes in the library and moving from print to digital and how the library spaces start to change in response to that. And I'm sure she will tell you about it much better than I could summarise.
Thank you, Nigel. So the story that I want to tell you today is how the UniSA libraries have transformed themselves from basically book repositories or storage spaces to efficient and engaging teaching and learning spaces and student spaces. And I'll start off with a snapshot of our newest library building, the Jeffrey Smart building on our City West campus, and just give you an idea of what that's about, and then I'll talk through some of the steps or the stages in that transformative journey from repository to learning space. And some of the things I'll talk about that were key stages in that process were the relegation of our hard copy collections and the reduction in acquisition of print books. I'll look at how we've remodelled or revolutionised, you might say, our inquiry services from a physical desk to a virtual service, how we've used the Jeffrey Smart building as a template to roll out equivalent spaces across our other campuses, and how we've shared our spaces with other student services to make efficiencies with our space use. And then finally, I'll finish up with just what we've been doing in user experience to get feedback from our users about our spaces. So these are just some images from the Jeffrey Smart Library. So there are a variety of different space types, serving a variety of different kinds of functions. Probably doesn't really look like a library yet. And our outdoor spaces as well have been designed for multiple uses. So this is what's in the Jeffrey Smart building. So it's a high-tech, technology-rich space, $8 million worth of technology in there. And at UniSA, we've got 4 metropolitan libraries, of which the Jeffrey Smart, the library in the Jeffrey Smart building is just one of those 4. And the Jeffrey Smart Library, since it's been built, it has become our template that's led us to engage in a master planning process to roll out equivalent or not to replicate but to provide equivalent spaces at our other campus libraries. So not everything in the Jeffrey Smart is perfect, but we have still used it as our benchmark to roll out to create engaging spaces on our other campuses. So this master planning process is one of the key planks in our transformation of our libraries across our campuses. So we've worked with the facilities management team in engaging a consultant who we briefed, and then we went into the context setting and the kit of parts processes. And the context setting was a very detailed and lengthy collection of data about the spaces at our the other 3 campuses, and a very detailed analysis of what spaces we had on those campuses and how they were being used, so that the architects could then see what the equivalence was across the campuses. Then the kit of parts process, which is the next blue circle, that involved the consultants creating a sort of a collection of images, of photos of every single piece of the Jeffrey Smart Library, that you know, the service points, the facilities, the different study spaces, that kind of thing, and using that kit of parts to engage the students in a survey to see what they thought of the spaces and to find out how they used them. And some of the results of that survey, I think we already knew some of the answers. We knew that noise was a problem, and that was confirmed by the student survey. And we also found out that just because you've designed something with a particular use in mind, I mean, you probably would all know this, but students don't actually use the spaces like they've been designed. So You can build a study room for group work that the students will sit in there as individuals. You can create individual, computer spots or corrals. The students will pull up 5 or 6 chairs and sit around and use it as a group study space. So some of that we already knew. Then moving on to the actual creation of the master plans, and we developed a set of design principles, which I'll show you, which have been very important. Campus master plans that we have started to implement, and of course cost plans, but we won't mention those. And then when we move on to implementation, we have actually started to implement some of the features from the plans, and now at our McGill and City East campuses we have high-tech classrooms like we do in the Jeffrey Smart building. They've already been constructed, and we're also sharing our workspaces and our service delivery space with other service units, student admin and IT. We're sharing space with them. And one of the other interesting sort of side effects of the master planning process has been that the library, which used to be sort of peripheral to space and planning discussions because we were our own discrete little thing, we're now key players in planning discussions around space on the campuses because we've shown that we're open to modifying and reuse of our space in different ways. So it's actually positioned the library as a player in conversations about space. So these are some of the images from the Jeffrey Smart Library. So we're not necessarily trying to recreate exactly the type of spaces that were available for students in the Jeffrey Smart, but if we can't make exactly the same, we're looking for to create equivalent spaces so that they can have expectations of the same kind of experience on the different campuses. So these are the design principles that the consultants developed in conjunction with library staff, and these have been carried out. So in the work that's happened in City East and the McGill Library, these principles have been taken into account. So the first two, the prominent presence in the campus and the legibility of entries. At McGill and at City East, our libraries in those two campuses were kind of swamped by other buildings. They don't have nice, distinct entryways. They're hard to find, and they're really just, overshadowed by other buildings, and they're not easy to sort of see. So in work that's been done to plan new entrances for those buildings, these two first design principles have been taken into account. So both of those libraries now have a plan for new entrances. Expensive, so still in the planning stage, they're not funded yet, but these design principles have been really key in developing those new designs. We prioritise student space, so they get the prime real estate, staff get moved to the less prime real estate, into the peripheries. We zone the spaces from loud to quiet, but again, we're struggling to find the right balance of quiet and silent space with active space in all of our libraries. Where we've got collection left, and as our collection is shrinking and shrinking, that's going to become difficult, but we use the remaining book collections that we've got to create alcoves in different spaces. And where we've got other student services in the libraries, which we do at Mawson Lakes and at City West, we locate those student services near high-flow, high-traffic areas. A second thing that we have done that's opened up our spaces is moved away from a fixed information desk, which you can see our old information desks in these images here. And these desks are now gone. And that it's not only changed the way we work, but it's changed the way that we can use our spaces and the way we think about our spaces as well, and how we have, in the past might have felt that, things needed to be, adjacent to the desk or whatever. But now that we don't have a desk, it frees you up to be a whole lot more flexible. Being able to move from the fixed service desk with, person there all the time, to virtual information service, inquiry services, has come about to a high degree because we've reduced our book collection. So once you don't have a huge book collection, You're not constantly being called out to help students find things on the shelf. You're not constantly having to go out to do claims returned or negotiate fees and fines, because that all disappears. So once we had made those reductions to the book collection, we were able to implement that new service delivery model. And then once it was implemented, that in itself has now become a driver for change. And once we'd gone to that virtual model, everything that then made us have to go out to the desk to serve a customer face-to-face has been the focus of our inquiry. So why do we still have to do this? And an example of that would be laptop loans. So we lend students laptops, and that required us to go out to the desk to do a manual loan. And when the students return the laptops, again, that was a manual interaction. We had to go out there to do that. And now we've got to get past that, to be able to streamline our services further. We've now got lap-safe lockers at all our campuses. So as much as we can, we are pushing self-service and trying to reduce the need to have these sort of manual interactions. So we're trying to get our systems to do those fairly low-value interactions to save our staff time for the high-value interactions. And for us, I think change has become infectious, and the more we do, the more we pursue it. And so this is what our inquiry services looks like now. We have little pop-up counters at busy times of year in O Week or whatever. We can put these wherever we want, either in the library, somewhere else on the campus, outside a lecture room, whatever, and have a librarian there with a iPad, and we can serve the students where they are rather than having to come into the library. They can chat with us or call. All our pages have interactive, proactive chat, and we have the service points for IT and library in all of our libraries. And my colleague Julie Hockey, who's just down here, she's going to be speaking at length about the new inquiry services model tomorrow, so if you're interested in that. But this move from the face-to-face service to the virtual service has also freed up our spaces and made us more flexible. Something else that we've done, there's been some trial and error with this, but we're sharing our spaces now. So in the Jeffrey Smart Library, as you can see with the touchpad there, students could actually, when they came into the Jeffrey Smart, they were confronted with a bank of information desks, and the library had a desk in that lineup. Students took a ticket, got a number. They had to choose which service they wanted to use. The library has since we no longer occupy our desk, and at the moment it's student admin have a desk in that space. So we shared our service points, and at the Mawson Lakes campus we also shared our service point with student admin, and they're still there, but we're not. And our inquiries over the last few years have gone down and down and down, largely due to the implementation of our e-collections and all the self-help that we provide. So we no longer have a desk there, but we share our workspaces. So our IT colleagues are now sharing our workspaces, and other student services are now staff are in the library with us, the student engagement unit and student admin. And the Jeffrey Smart building, which there's photos from the Jeffrey Smart, that was always designed as a shared use space. And in those early days when there was, the planning meetings for the construction of the building, there was quite a lot of jockeying for position of who was going to be boss of the building. But once we got into the building, as it turns out, really it was only the library staff who had any experience of managing a facility like that. So it soon became not as popular as it was in those early days. And I reckon we're possibly in the swamp will continue to. There were some tears along the way, but it's sort of, it's all right now. But so sharing our spaces has been another way that we've been able to create efficiencies in the actual use of our space and hopefully make a better experience for our students. And then the relegation of our collections, which was a really critical part of the whole process of freeing up space and being able to reuse it, and for creating our virtual services model. So you can see with the stats on this slide, our library collections, and just is pretty much, reversed from what it was in 2009 to 2016. So our e-book collections are now, way beyond what we had back in 2009. So just over those 8 years, 7 years, whatever it is, 7 years, we've shot ahead, and we have an e-preferred purchasing policy where we buy e-books rather than print books whenever possible. And then the usage of the e-books. So when you look at the loans, which is in the red, they were never, they're only sort of, what's that, I don't know, 600,000 or whatever. The number of 2.5 million downloads of our e-books, that's just completely inconceivable if you're thinking print books. So e-book download and usage has just outstripped what was even, anything that could have ever been possible with print book usage. And then lastly, just looking at what we're doing now. So there's, not a lot of point in creating all the new spaces and trying to, be more flexible and create new learning spaces for our students if our students don't like it or don't want to use it. So we had Andy Priestner, UK user experience expert, visit us earlier this year and spend 2 days with us training or, teaching us how to do these techniques, the ethnographic research techniques. And so these were the techniques that we used on the days that he was here. And this image is, you build the students a nice study room for group work. Well, that's not how they see it. They do this and just find their own way of using it. So these were the techniques that we used. And even from the 2 days of workshop that we did, we had students come in, we'd pre-arranged that and had them come into our library and work with us. This is a summary of the responses that we got. You can see the categories where we use those various techniques to elicit these kind of responses. And noise, that wasn't a surprise to us, but it's something that's actually, it's quite hard to work on. Then further down you can see spaces had a lot of comments, both negative and positive. Signage, we might not have known, I think, that there was as much confusion over signage as it turns out that there was. And just looking at what some of the comments actually were, so we pretty much knew this, and the noise problems are related to the actual building itself and the spaces, and of course to other people, which you could say that's really a building limitation as well. And we've got phone conversations being a problem, and a lot of those phone conversations, that's what people use the stairwell for. It's now kind of become the cone of silence for phone conversations. So noise is still a problem, and it's a difficult one to address in all our libraries. Signage was really mixed, but a lot of work had been done in the design of the Jeffrey Smart building around the wayfinding and the different kind of, the signage we had in there. But some of that's just the way people enter the building. They don't even see the staircase that they were meant to be funneled up. They just go straight to the lifts, and they bypass some of the signage that we thought was going to help them. But there was some good stuff there as well, so there's plenty that we can work with there. And then the spaces themselves, so they love some of our spaces, and in terms of amenity for the student, there are kitchens on every second floor, there are meeting rooms, there are all sorts of spaces that the students can actually use, and it's very flexible. They can move things around and do things differently. But even though we've got the kitchens, which is something we've never had in other libraries, it's not enough. They want more eating spaces. So you know, we have an outdoor space and then we have a balcony, but it's not, you know, so it's like whatever you give them, they want something else. But so there was a lot of positives with the spaces, but still some work that we need to do, and that the lessons that we learn from the Jeffrey Smart can be incorporated into that master planning process and rolled out at the other campuses. So what we're doing with that feedback that we've got from working with Andy Priestner, we're acting on some of the quick wins. There was an analysis done prior to the gathering of all of that data, and what were quick wins were pulled out and will be acted on straight away. Any of the more long-term or more expensive or more difficult feedback that was more difficult to act on are being added to our operational plans and will be dealt with as we can. And we're also now rolling out UX projects at each of our campuses to analyse the existing space and also some of the things that we've actually been able to implement since the master planning process was created. And that's